It's account review time! Hey everyone, Shark here, and we got some overwhelmingly positive responses for account reviews. There are literally hundreds of submissions and it will take me a really long time to get through them all, so please be patient. In the meantime, make sure to watch these videos because even if it takes a while for me to get to your specific account, the information here is still valuable to understanding how to build characters and how to put a team together. And obviously, since there are a ton of accounts to review, you can check the other account review videos that I'll have in a special playlist for an even better understanding of how to build characters, teams, and progress your account. With all that being said, it is a lot of work to review literally hundreds of accounts, so if you could like the video, it would really mean a lot to me. It takes hours and hours of work for me, but all I need is a quick tap of that thumbs up button from you. And now that you've liked the video, let's jump into the account reviews. Alright, let's take a look and see what this person would like for their account review. They checked all the boxes, so it seems like they just kind of want advice on everything. They'd like to use Xiao or Ayaka if they manage to pull her, and they don't want to use Amber. So let's see what their account looks like. 424 error? Oh no, we're gonna have to come back and check this again. Alright, it's several hours later and now we're finally back up and running. So you wanted some Xiao advice and also some potential Ayaka advice if you pull her. Alright, the first thing I noticed about Xiao is his weapon, and I'm gonna have to say something that's probably gonna trigger some people, but it is the truth. Hope you're ready. Alright, here goes. Xiao is one of the worst characters you can wish for if you are a free-to-play player. He's a very high investment carry that doesn't have good free-to-play 4-star weapon options, or at least he has very limited free-to-play 4-star weapon options. His teams are very expensive and you can often get the same amount of damage out of a team with just 4-star characters with free-to-play weapons. Now that I've triggered like every Xiao main in the world, let's give him a proper review and see how we can make him stronger. You're AR45, which means you started farming artifacts not too long ago, and looking at your substats, they're actually quite nice. However, I would recommend going for a crit rate or crit damage goblet. In your case, I'd recommend a crit damage goblet because your crit rate is over 50%, so you should be hitting critical hits pretty consistently. You've also built a lot of energy recharge on him, which is something I do like to see, but I think you might be missing out on some more offensive stats. And because Xiao is such a stat-hungry character, doing something like 2-piece attack is often better than doing something like 2-piece VV and 2-piece something else. So if you've got some good Shiminawa and Gladiators pieces, you can slap those on him and he'll do very well. But honestly, at this stage, I think your artifacts are fine. I would focus more on his weapons and talents first. Unfortunately, the prototype Star Glitter is not a great choice for him. It does give him energy recharge, which is nice, but the passive does not buff plunging attacks, only normal and charge attacks. And since Xiao is a pogo boy who likes to jump and plunge, you don't really get a lot of use out of that passive. A better option would be to run something like the Favonius Lance. It has a higher base attack than the prototype Star Glitter. It still gives you energy recharge, but it also can generate particles for your whole team. Barring that, you could use something like the Missive Wind Spear, which was an event-exclusive spear, but really your only other free-to-play option would be something like saving Star Glitter for a Black Cliff pull. Though based on the characters you have on display, I would save your Star Glitter for picking up a copy of Bennett. You can get him in the Star Glitter shop, and if you do, it's going to be much more impactful for your account than just getting a weapon for Xiao. But whatever weapon you can end up using, I recommend taking that to the highest level allowed in your current world level, and then also to ascend Xiao and level his talents up to level 8, and you want to level all of them to level 8. Though this may not be your priority depending on how well your other characters are built. So now let's take a look at Jean, who I'm assuming is going to be Xiao's battery. Oh, okay. If you're running Jean for Xiao's support, then you don't need to run Viridescent on her. You can run something like Noblesse for more attack, or even Exiles for more energy for your whole team. If you plan to use Jean for Ayaka, VV is good, except Jean doesn't really swirl that much. Unless you end up running her with your next character, which is Rosaria, and that you use both Jean and Rosaria's bursts inside of each other, and make sure to keep the monsters inside of Rosaria's burst. If you do that, Jean can more easily swirl the cryo, but just know that it's not 100% consistent. So again, same thing, level your weapon, level your talents, level your artifacts. You can just go to plus 16 on the artifacts, you don't have to go to plus 20 because they're not super amazing, but the extra substats will definitely help. In most situations, you'll probably want to run Jean with something like a crit headpiece, an animo damage goblet, and an energy recharge sands. You're also not going to need to level her normal attacks because in most situations you're going to use her in, you're not going to have her on field for very long. She's going to switch in, use her skill, maybe use her burst, and then switch out. And while Jean is certainly good and very useful, I wouldn't say she's the highest priority character for you to level right now, because it's likely going to be some of your 4 stars that you're going to want to focus on more. So let's take a look at Rosaria now. Oh, interesting, Rosaria with a Dragon's Bane. This is actually very good for a reverse melt Rosaria, though I don't think that's necessarily what you were going for. I think that's just what you had. If you have something like the Favonius Lance, you can give that to Xiao and then give the prototype Star Glitter that you have on him to Rosaria. And while she doesn't really use the passive ability either, the extra energy recharge is nice for her. And in most situations, you are going to want to run a 4-piece Blizzard Strayer set on her. That just allows her to get massive amounts of crit rate, especially in freeze teams, which also means that you can build more crit damage and attack on her. So I'd opt to go for a 4-piece Blizzard Strayer set, go for a crit damage helm. You can also use an attack helm if you have a really good attack helm. Cryo damage, goblets, energy recharge, or attack sands, and then a good flower and feather. She's also going to be a quick swap DPS for you, meaning you want to level her skill and her burst, but you don't need to touch her normal attacks. You can pair her with both Kaya and your Xingqiu and have a pretty nice freeze team. Alright, let's check out Xiao's lovely support, Faruzan. Very first thing I see, Favonius Warbow, very nice. You definitely need this because she needs a lot of energy recharge. In fact, this is actually a pretty nice job of building her. You've got the 4-piece emblem, you've got a crit rate headpiece, and you've got an energy recharge sands. Even though Faruzan doesn't really do very good damage at all, the crit rate headpiece is really nice because you do need crit rate to proc the Favonius passive, and since your Favonius is R1, the more crit rate you have, the easier it is to proc the passive and get energy back for your whole team. And speaking of energy, when you level up your Favonius Warbow and your energy recharge sands, you should have enough energy recharge for Faruzan. Because while you have 180% now, she actually wants quite a bit more than that. But if you get her bow to level 90 and you get her sands to plus 20, then you'll have about an extra 70% energy recharge, which is about how much she's going to need, because her energy requirements are unfortunately pretty enormous. Especially if you end up using the Favonius Warbow particles to battery Xiao instead of her. Other than that, you do want to level up her elemental burst, because while you always reduce a flat 30% of animo resistance regardless of her burst's talent level, you do gain more animo damage bonus for your characters if you level her burst up. Honestly, your Faruzan seems like she's very well suited for her support role, and it seems like you've built her pretty well. That is to say, you've given her a Favonius Warbow and given her as much energy recharge as you possibly can, which is basically what you want to do. Now let's take a look at your Xingqiu. Sky Strider Sword, ooh. I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. At least you're building a sword with energy recharge. But I'm sure you know you'd really want a Favonius or a Sacrificial Sword on him. Alright, out of all the characters you have, Xingqiu is definitely the one who could use the most improvement. Try to go for a 4-piece Emblem of the Severed Fate artifact set for him, or if you decide that you're going to try to go for Rosaria's artifacts first, you could give him a 2-piece Heart of Depth, 2-piece Emblem, 2-piece Noblesse, 2-piece attack set, something like that. If you decide to farm for Blizzard Strayer, you're going to get some Heart of Depth pieces, and you can use that 2-piece set bonus to increase Xingqiu's hydro damage. And then you could just use 2-piece of any other useful set, and it's much easier to build a 2-piece set than it is to build a 4-piece set with all good substats. Also, don't forget, you definitely want to level his skill and burst. You don't need to touch his normal attacks, but his skill and burst are very, very important. Now, based on your characters, you're probably running Xiao with Rosaria and Jean and Faruzan, but I'm going to suggest you 2 separate teams. The first team I think you should run should be a Jean, Rosaria, Kaya, Xingqiu team. This is sort of a quick swap team because Jean, Kaya, and Rosaria all have pretty short cooldowns of 6 seconds apiece, but Xingqiu's elemental skill cooldown is 20 seconds, and he has a long burst cooldown as well. So the idea is you cycle between Jean, Rosaria, and Kaya, use all of their skills, use Xingqiu's skill and burst when it's off cooldown, then use Kaya and Rosaria's burst when it's off cooldown, use Jean's burst if you need any healing, and anytime everyone else's skills are on cooldown, just stay on the field with Jean, attack a little bit, heal up your party, and just go to town while you wail on enemies and freeze them at the same time. It's a very effective team and pretty comfy. It's not exactly suited for the highest floors of the Abyss, but it is still a pretty good team. And if you decided you wanted a team that does a little bit more damage but at the cost of running no healer, you could use the Dendro Traveler instead of Jean. It's still a freeze team, but with the introduction of Dendro, it's also causing Bloom, and Bloom does a pretty good amount of damage, and it doesn't interact with or it doesn't eat any of the Cryo Aura either. But if I were you, I'd probably stick to Jean, Rosaria, Kaya, and Xingqiu. And since you mentioned you wanted Ayaka, you could use this same team, just replace Kaya for Ayaka, and you've got yourself an even better freeze team. Now for Xiao, I would just run Xiao with Faruzan and probably someone like Barbara. Barbara isn't there for any damage, she's only there to hold the R5 Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers and to give you a little bit of healing if you need it. Faruzan is your buffer for Xiao, and hopefully you can get Bennett in the Star Glitter shop in May so you can put him on the team too. If you do get Bennett, I'd probably swap out Barbara for someone like Lisa, because Lisa's Ascension 4 passive allows her to shred enemy defenses with her Elemental Burst. So that team gives you Xiao that's dealing damage, Lisa that's shredding enemy defenses, Faruzan who's shredding Anemo resistance and buffing Anemo damage, and Bennett who's giving you a very large attack buff. Unfortunately, this team is extremely energy hungry, and you're probably going to have to run Favonius weapons on every single character. But that's what I would suggest for you. Take the characters you have, split them into 2 teams, focus on building Xingqiu first, then go for Faruzan or Rosaria, whichever one you like more, then round out Jean and Xiao, and by that time you may be ready to wish for Ayaka, so you may not want to build Kaya all the way. Whatever you choose to do, you can make 2 very strong teams, but I very highly recommend getting Bennett from the Star Glitter shop, or potentially wishing on the Dea and Sino banners, but that is, those banners are bad. And also be sure to look out for Favonius weapons, because just about every single character on these teams wants one.